of vision will sort of occupy your mind in these your teenage years now? So we are over 200 million people in the diaspora. If we work together, we are bigger than any significant country in the world, and we're also more powerful than any significant country in the world. But if we don't work together, if we are working against ourselves, even the smallest country in the world, the smallest organized people in the world can always take us down. We give you a bundle of money, we throw you into the forest. We give you no money, maybe 20 or 30 people, we throw you into the forest. Who's going to develop first? Because as individual, we are destined to die. Because the world is so complicated that you cannot solve all the problems. You need more than just your brain. You need a collection of multiple brains for you to find the solution. Therefore, again, we go back to what we were saying before, like looking at it, because of course it's natural now that as people of African descent, looking at the African diaspora, the spirit of Ubuntu will always come.
But are actually the gifts that God have given you to connect with. Um, it's and then I think the beauty that we have today is that we have technology that allows us to connect with people. So even if you feel like you're isolated and alone and disconnected in your little community somewhere, that's not necessarily an excuse anymore, whether it be with your phone or with your computer. You're able to connect with people across the globe as we're doing right now.
Yes, hi everyone, and thank you for today's conversation. This is Obehi Podcast, and as usual, I'm your host, Obehi Ewafo. Of course, you already know that I'm originally from Nigeria and very passionate about storytelling. This is what we do here. We tend to tell people from time to time that storytelling is the most powerful instrument that they have. Actually, this reminds me, I was doing a research a couple of years ago now, and I stumbled on the data that is beginning to make a lot of impact in me, and I share with people often time that since humanity showed up on Earth till now, we have been about 170 billion people on Earth, including the 8 billion people today. But what is really important about that data is that each and every one of us has been unique. Nature has never made any mistake, which is to say, we don't have any business copying another person. We should become the best version of ourselves. We should own our story and we should use it to stand out in the sea of the confusion that might be out there. With over 5 billion people on the internet today, the worst we can do is to try to be another person. We are the best specimen that can be. So we must celebrate ourselves. So this is why we continuously use storytelling here, and we continuously also tell businesses and professionals to hone their story and to use it to connect. And today, I'm blessed. I'm truly blessed to have somebody with me who's going to be sharing with me, who's going to be telling us about his experiences, where he's coming from, why he's doing what he's doing. Mr. Prince, thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure here.
A pleasure, such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your words that you just shared as well.
Thank you so much for that. Could you please tell some people who you are, or tell the people who you are? They will just drill it down from there.
All right. Well, great. Well, my name is Dr. Kazique Prince. I'm based here in Austin, Texas, in the United States, and my work for the last 20 plus years has been centered around how to help people to build trust, build greater connection, to be able to tell their own personal stories. I'm a psychologist by training, a parent. The most important thing right now I'm doing is being a parent of two adults who I love and cherish in so many ways. But like I said, I'm a psychologist and been working in the diversity, equity, inclusion space for over 20 years.
All right, that is lovely. I will start with your name, Prince. We like to pride ourselves that we are kings and queens in Africa. And this is who we really are. And we need to celebrate that from time to time. You see, some African ladies, particularly those in the diaspora, sometimes they refer to other ladies as queen. That is the right word to use for who we are. And sometimes we also need to refer to ourselves as king and princes and princesses. This is so true. So tell me a bit about your origin. Tell me a bit about you.
Well, it's funny you say that because my father's side is the Prince side, and I'll be honest, we have a bit of pride when it comes to having a name like that. When I did my genealogy background, found out that I want to say, if I remember correctly, about 60 or plus percent of it is actually based in West Africa. So Nigeria, Mali, that part of the continent. And so, but the other kind of Kazique is actually it's the original inhabitants of the Caribbean. So you find that they had a shared language in the Caribbean, parts of Latin America, like in Costa Rica, and Kazique was actually the name of the leaders of different communities, and so it's kind of like chief or leader or a medicine man, a person, and so I have this somewhat unique name. But then the Jelani is my middle name, which you probably know is Swahili. It means mighty or powerful. So I'm into names. My ex-wife will tell you I spend way too much time trying to figure out my kids' names as well. So names mean a lot.
Absolutely. And that is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. And now that we are talking of name, why not? There was an episode we did a couple of years ago. We titled it The Significance of Our Names. Because we have a series that we call African Diaspora Storytelling Series. We have two actually. One is around business and how we use business in storytelling. How we use storytelling in business. The second one is about diaspora storytelling, about our root connected to who we are, our experiences. Then we have different people joining us from different parts of the world, particularly in the US and UK, and also in the Caribbean, where we are essentially exploring this idea of storytelling, the significance of our names, for example, spirituality, and also some of the challenges that we have in the diaspora. And sometimes mental health problem, we also have problem, but we also have a lot of value, culture, and heritage that we need to celebrate continuously. So there was this particular event that we did. It was about the significance of names, because sometimes when people hear your name, they don't understand the deep meaning behind it. And it is important that we also let our children know the importance of the name that they bear. Okay, now let me give you an instance. If you are from Nigeria, you know Nigeria is about 235 million people, no? If I don't to mention your name, somebody can pinpoint where you are coming from in Nigeria. And that is
Oh
really
yeah,
significant. In that you don't get missing, even though we are over 235 million people. It's not a way of isolation, it's a way of
right.
connecting.
Yes,
It means
yes,
that
yes.
you know the daughter and the son of who you are. Therefore, you walk
Right,
in a different light. So
right, right. It's
name
beautiful.
is absolutely fundamentally important. My name is Obehi. Okay, I could go already and explain a bit of my name because there are many. I'm also called Ehi Choya. That is a name given to me by my grandmother. Then my father gave me a name which is Obehi Oye. Sorry, Ehi Omohegbere. Obehi is a name that was given to me by my mother. So each of them have their own significance, and by the time I go on to analyze them, they all are connected to one another. But anyway, we're not going to go there today, otherwise it's going to take away the pleasure that we have to be able to learn from you, because you are the one that is teaching us today, so I don't want to go into that. All right, now I want to do something. You are like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Yeah, let's say you are in the teen now. What do you see around yourself? Help us to learn about what you are seeing around yourself growing.
Uh, 18 years old. At 18, I was sprite, enthusiastic, and lots of energy. But the challenge of being young is you don't know what you don't know. And so, if I were to speak to that young brother, it would be to say, don't be afraid, because I grew up in the church, and one of the things I think I learned, or there's this idea that wealth is almost like this evil thing that it's easier to get to heaven
To
through
make
the
the head of the
wisdom.
camel pass through the eyes of the needle, that to For a rich
Yes.
man to enter into the kingdom of God, I remember.
Yeah. 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 And so I think what came with that was this idea that I want to do good in the world, of course, right? But that good required you to almost live a life of poverty. And unfortunately, the messages I got around wealth of any sort was oftentimes it. I had some folks in my family who did some unsavory things that they were creative in how they made money, and sometimes they hurt people. But uh, I don't think that wealth is necessarily an evil thing, but it's something that you can be wealthy in spirit, wealthy in financial gain, wealthy in family and friends. There's all kinds of wealth, and it's what you do with that wealth. It's raising your children. It's supporting your community. It's offering job opportunities. Wealth. It's what you do with the wealth and the person you are more so than anything else. And so I think wealth doesn't necessarily have to be something that gets in the way of who you are, but maybe is a way of manifesting who you are. But that it's hard to do that sometimes when you have so much wealth and you're spoiled and you don't do good with it. And so I think it's important when I hear stories of people who have wealth. But I'll give you an example. I have a family member who did pretty well for themselves. But my cousin had the most busted car you can, you can imagine. And she is probably one of the most grounded, humble, loving, family oriented kind of people I know. And I love that about her. But I think it was very intentional of her parents who said, yeah, we have the means, but we're not going to give it just because we have it. You have to work hard for it. You're going to have to be responsible. You have to learn how to take care of it. And so there's a lot of conditions that came with it that I think it had a lot of impact on how she was and how she grew up. And so for me, I think sometimes the way I heard that was wealth was something you don't deserve, number one, and number two, you just have to suffer. And that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of people who take wealth and use it as a way of relieving people's suffering, supporting them through difficult times. And so, again, it's not seeing wealth as a good or bad thing, but something that is a tool to be used. And you can learn from that versus, I think, how I grew up. Because I thought maybe I wanted to be a minister. And, ministers are broke. So, they go over there saving the world and saving souls. And they're going to be doing it, they're gonna be like Jesus. They're going to be walking on the side of the road saving souls. And I think not that I've totally abandoned that thinking. It's just I don't think of it quite as white and black as I've thought about it in the past.
What kind of vision will sort of occupy your mind in these your teenage years now? Because you're a psychology now, and as a psychologist, you know how the brain work. Can basically work into the mind of the people because you have undergone the training. You know how to do that. Okay, by that I mean I'm really specific on the terms. In that psychologists are able to walk into the mind of the people, and they are supposed to do that. That is the training. If somebody is about to commit suicide, the person is on 10-story building or 2-story building or three, you don't go there and say, hey, I will shoot you. If you threaten the person just jump. You don't do that. You need to gradually talk the person into the idea of believing that it is better to stay than to jump. And you don't do that by just forcing somebody or threatening somebody or beating somebody. So you have power in your hand as a psychologist. But before we get there just now, I'm trying to understand you growing up, what is occupying your mind, apart from the one that you already shared with me, your friends, the people around you, the social construct that you see around yourself, the people that you are seeing. I don't know if you are reading a book. I don't know if you are hearing a story from your parents. I don't know if you
Hmm.
were able to learn from your grandpa, your grandma. Things like
Hmm.
that. They are important for us. Okay, now you see why I'm sort of very key on this elementary part is that He gave us the privilege to be able to know a greater part of our story that we will never even know. Because it is important for us. I cannot be in the US right now, but by you sharing that story with me, it will not only help me, but it will also help some other person who's going to listen to that story. It helps that person to connect. So please share with me what you remember.
I have some of my fondest memories. I grew up primarily with my mother. My parents divorced early on, but I still have to this day a very tight connection with a very large family that's based out of Houston. And I'll be honest, this is kind of a important time. Unfortunately, I lost one of my uncles. I have seven uncles and an aunt. Two of them had already passed already, and another one passed a week or so ago.
Sorry about
I'm
that.
actually going to. Well, I appreciate it, but this is actually a really good time to be talking about him. His name was Larry, Uncle Larry Prince. But he and the rest of my uncles and aunt were critical in my development as I was young because I we were like a lot of folks back in the 70s and 80s here in the States. A lot of black folks left the South to go to California, Chicago, other places for better opportunities. And but the challenge is that you're constantly moving around. I went to four elementary schools, two middle schools, two high schools. And so one of the challenges of that is that I'm constantly making friends. I get really good at making friends, having conversations, meeting people. But really, I'm this introverted person. I'm quiet. I do a lot of watching. I've a lot of my grandmother, who's still alive, who's 105, would say, "Hey, I remember watching you when you were little. You'd be sitting in the corner with those big old eyes, just watching. I see you over there watching us, watching and listening and learning." And that's just how I was growing up. But it was because I was kind of aware of kind of my surroundings and what was going on and who was going to be the ones I played with or, all that kind of stuff. But the consistency that I had was my family. My mother, I can't say more about how beautiful and wonderful she was as a mom. She was a single mom, struggling. And this is the 70s here. In the 70s here, it was hard as a black woman in general. But, you couldn't there was a period of time where a black woman a woman in general, particularly a black woman, couldn't get a banking account with her name on it without her husband's permission. And so, my mother, in her situation, she, in the middle of the night, had to basically steal away my brother and I because she was in a situation that required it. And she had to figure out how to, find an apartment, all those kinds of things. Things that, I'll be honest, she graduated from college, got married, soon thereafter had some kids. So she wasn't ever on her own. But she had to figure out how to do all these things with the support of her parents because her parents, my grandparents, were again they were stalwarts. They're my grandfather, her father. Um, there's so many things to say about him, but he was here in the States. I don't know how popular they are in different parts of Africa, but he was a part of a fraternity called the Kappas. And one of the things he used to tell me all the time, because he would take his money and fold it and put it in a little clip. And me, when I was a kid, I had my money all bundled up like this and put in my pocket. And he said, "Son, you got to pull out your money and you got to lay it straight, put all the faces up and at the same direction. And then you flatten them out and then you fold them real neat, and you put it back in your pocket." And I said, "You know why you do that, son?" And I'm like, "No, because I didn't care." And he says, "You do that because if you take care of your money, it takes care of you." And so these are kind of the life lessons, whether it be my mom's side of the family, because they actually left Texas to go to California and support my mother. So they were kind of people that we would go and see them like every other weekend. And matter of fact, my grandfather was the one that introduced two sports I actually still enjoy. That I'll be honest, a lot of black folks here didn't play at the time. One of them was he loved playing golf. That's something he just really enjoyed. I don't play it much, but I enjoy it as a spectator. But he was the one that got me to play tennis because he had this wooden tennis racket. Because he played tennis, And he said, "Hey, you want to go out? If you can, I use this thing?" He's like, "Yeah, go out." So I'll go out there and hit the wall. Lo and behold, by the time I get to college, I'm like, I have these dreams and aspirations. I joined the tennis team. I played tennis in high school. There's nobody in my family other than him who played tennis, but he had such a positive influence on me that really had an impact on me, and it made me do something that no one else, to be honest, around me was doing. That's what wealthy white folks do, and I showed one of my uncles. We still tell this story today, and chances are when we go visit over the weekend, we'll tell this story. When I was still in elementary school, he used to tell me stories about science and all these kind of things. He tried to teach me the theory of relativity when I was in the, I think, fifth grade, and or maybe even younger than that. But it came from basically us being in the airplane, and I'm asking him a question. I say, "Hey, who's moving, the clouds or us?" And he stops. He says, "That's a very good question." And there's this white guy named Einstein, and he came up with a theory of relativity. And I just looked at him like, what? But I still remember that story. Here I am, 54 years old. And, those kinds of experiences, because, he was the uncle who was super, super smart. He was an engineer. He worked off the shores of Louisiana in the oil industry. Um, but I don't know if he actually got to experience the things that he wanted to finish school and become super super successful. But he had a way of telling me stories and teaching me that are still really critical to who I am as a person. And so whether it's my uncles and my aunt, I could tell you story after story. I could tell you about my great grandmother who lived until she was 114,
Okay.
who every time I would see her, I'm not sure if she remembered, but she would look at me, and every time she saw me, I was a little taller, and she goes, "Babe, you just growing like a sapling tree." I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." But she was like a sanctuary, because unfortunately in my family there was a lot of violence and some really unsavory aspects of our experience. But my great grandmother was known as a place you can go to get away from all the madness, to get that sense of safety. And so every time I would go, my father would say, "Hey, go say hello to Mama." That's what we called her. And she'd be in there by herself a lot of times. And you come in, she'd say hello, she remember your name, she reflect on a few things, she'd say some prayers, and then she offer you some cookies. That was pretty much it.
That's so lovely.
And I loved it. I loved it because it made me feel special, made me feel like someone cared, and it created a sense of a foundation that my hope is that I'm able to offer those same kinds of uh, loving opportunities, those opportunities for growth and affection and remembrance and connection. Um, I was actually thinking. I'll say this last thing. Um, Again, I have a funeral to go to on Saturday. A couple of days, and I thought I was going to have to go there by myself because both my kids are grown, but my daughter lives with me, and I thought she was going to not be able to attend. But then she shared with me yesterday. She said, "Hey, I'm going to be able to go with you to the funeral." And I'll be honest, it gave me such a relief, for her to come, to join, to share. I was on the phone with my brother. He's going to fly in from DC, from the Washington DC, and it gave me this sense of relief, to be honest, because not that there weren't going to be people there. It's actually going to be a very large attendance of folks, but it was important to know that my brother was going to be there. It was important to know that at least one of my children were going to be there, because it's a tough time to be saying goodbye, but it's also great to have people to come together and to tell stories and share and learn. Because I promise you, I knew my uncle relatively well, but I'm sure I didn't know everything about him. And so it's going to be beautiful to hear the stories. Because every time we have one of these funerals, whether it's a family member or family friend, you learn a lot about them. When my mother passed away, I guess now it's 14 years ago, I learned more about my mama Just sitting there listening to her friends telling stories.
And because all the people
I'm
that gathered
crying.
around, they're telling story, their experiences that because life basically is about experience, no? The kind of relationship that you
Yes.
have with people, whether it is bad or good. Okay, generally, in that moment, usually it's about we are remembering the good thing. We are doing that because we want to build up a connection and also to leave a good memory in the hands of those who are coming around to learn more about our collective existence. Uh, in Africa, when we
Yes.
say interconnectedness, that everything is connected, both the past and the present, and those that have gone and those that is going to come. And so it's a kind of a crucial moment, that time where people are sharing experiences of things that you think you know, but you didn't know enough of it. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. It's because I'll be honest. Growing up, I didn't like going to funerals because it's going to be like an all day endeavor, right? We gonna be here for a while. There's the wake, then there's the funeral, and we're talking about 2-3 hours, church service, right? And then there's the eating afterwards. So if you're a little kid going to a funeral, this is not like the thing you wanted to sign up for. But as an adult, it's like these are really important because you need to hear those stories, but you also need the opportunity to be able to say goodbye, and have those moments, those small moments of remembrance and honoring of people as well.
Yeah, and also a moment of realization of life. No, in my place it is egbore egbore avie, meaning when you cry for the dead, you actually cry for yourself. When somebody
So
died,
true.
that there is the bereave, you are there crying. It might appear that you are crying for the dead, but the dead is already gone. The dead do not feel pain. Dead do not probably hear you. Maybe they hear you, but okay. But you are essentially crying for yourself because as you look at the person that is on the ground, it is a mirror to see yourself because that is who you are going to be. That is who you are essentially. Just that that part of you have transitioned. So if you have been in a funeral, there is a different kind of air there. It's like when a child is born. That is different. That is different from a marriage, or different from birthday ceremony, or different from a church service where you go on Sunday. These two moments are very special. When a child is born and when a human being passed away. Because there are things that they are irreversible. For example, when a child is born, those are moments that you cannot duplicate, you cannot replicate it. It is unique. It's just like I was saying before that there have been over 170 billion people on earth. That newborn baby is the best that can happen. You can't say, oh, go back again, or you can't do anything about it. It have happened. If you are, I remember, for example, when my son was born, it basically transformed me. The day I could just pick up my son and look at him, everything changed about me. The kind of reflection, the kind of deep thought that enters me. But it's the same also. I remember when I lost my grandmother, or when I lost my father. Okay, but when I lost my father, I was pretty small. I was in primary two. So those are moments that changes you forever. But those are unique moments. Those are kind of moments you don't say, hey, go and experience it for me. You need to be there to see it. And it's about again the connection, the memories, because memory is also another thing that is very common in the work that I do. That is what we are doing here because we are creating memory. I am not just imagining that you are the only one that is enjoying this conversation. I am imagining instead that somebody is going to have the chance to listen to this conversation in about 100 years from now. In about 200 years from now, you are no longer here, I am no longer here, but they will see us, they will hear us, they will know our thought, they will know our vision, what we were thinking about the world. That is a unique moment. All right, now I'm curious. You are into psychology. Was there anything special that could have drive you there, or could have pull you there, or push you there? What do you have to say about that?
You know, I was unlike a lot of my friends. One, I knew I was going to college because my mother gave me no other choice. there's there's college and then there's death. But I had taken a psychology class in high school, and I was just curious. I said, "Who are these old white dudes over here? What they talking about?" And what I found out when I was taking the course with this teacher who was also my English teacher, it just everything we talked about was it excited me, but it was interesting because before that, what was interesting to me was like history. I love hearing stories about like family background and making the connections. Here in Texas, we do Texas history in the seventh grade. And those classes I always did really well. But to be honest, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. People ask me, "What you grow up wanting to be?" I'm like, I don't know. I just had no idea. But when I took that psychology class, I was like, I could do this. Now, there are no psychologists in my family, but there are plenty of people, I guess like a doula or midwife. And and also ministers in my family, a long legacy of ministers. And so for me, that's the ancestral connection because these are people who supported others, who listened to their troubles, who prayed for them. And so becoming a psychologist for me was about a ministry of sorts to support people, to encourage them. But the way I did it was to become a psychologist. And to be honest, I mean, from my first class in college through my finishing my PhD, it was just a passion for me, and it allowed me to. And the reason I did my PhD because, and I said this when I was an undergrad, I don't want anything to get in the way of what I want to do. And so for me, I wanted to have a degree that one gave me credibility, but also a certain level of status. But I'll be honest, being a psychologist, I think it was in some ways a bit unique because it really helped me to understand the people around me. And from a very basic level, in all honesty, there was a lot of confusion I grew up with. Unfortunately, there's a lot of drug use and alcoholism and a lot of other kinds of mental health challenges. And so for me, going into this field allowed me to make sense of some things that were perplexing and sometimes very hurtful. And so it was part of my own personal journey to understand myself and the world that I lived in, but then it gave me the skills to be able to figure out how to be supportive of others in a meaningful way because even growing up in the church, I was seeing some really not so great things that were happening in the church community that was problematic. I wanted to figure out how can I how can I end that. Like one of the things I've learned over the years is this brother here. He talks about clean pain and dirty pain, and dirty pain is that all those things that we think of, all the awful things that gets passed down from generation to generation. Clean pain is the struggle and difficulties that we grow up with or we experience, but we use it as a way of helping us grow and develop and to love one another. And so instead of transferring that dirty pain from generation to generation or from person to person, part of my journey is about how do I create that clean pain that allows us to grow and manifest the best that we have to offer and what I think God has actually given us as a gift to share with one another.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Appreciate that. I wanted to ask something related to that too. Is there any angle or any area of psychology that you are focusing on, or I don't, can we even say psychology generally, or are there usually some discipline in it that you are focusing more in this area?
Yeah, I was trained as a counseling psychologist. And traditionally here in the US, a counseling psychologist typically is someone who's trained to provide counseling services, whether it be individual, group, couples. We don't prescribe any medication, of course, but traditionally we worked in universities, veteran centers of sorts. But the whole point of having a counseling psychologist was actually post World War II, where they had a lot of their soldiers coming back to the communities. You probably heard phrases like So they wanted to have psychologists in place to help basically support them in their transition back to the community. So that's a tradition. But basically, my training is actually for pretty much most anything. But my work now has been really more focused on the consulting psychology or industrial and organizational psychology. So I really have the pleasure of working with organizations and leaders and helping them manifest their organizational goals that they might be trying to achieve, particularly when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion. Because here in the States and across the globe, you find whether it's women's inability to move forward in an organization. Here in the States, it's black, brown, low income folks. My job is to identify the natural genius that's in every community and help the organization to become the kind of organization that one is able to capitalize on the talent of all their employees, but also ensure that everyone is having a very positive experience and they feel like they belong and feel included as part of that organization.
Thank you so much for that. All right. So, um, as you're talking, I'm remembering the conversation that we had 2 days ago. Yeah, 2 days ago. Like I was telling you, we have the diaspora storytelling series, and the last one we did was 2 days ago. And luckily, the conversation was around cooperation, collaboration instead of competition. And of course, we are tagging the African diaspora community again that it was important, or it is important for us, or it's more advantageous for us to collaborate instead of competing against each other. Because we really have nothing to benefit if we are biting each other. But of course, again, if we go back to our history, we understand also where that is coming from. That has become an instrument to be used to put us under control. And then, of course, there are many other things that are related to that, and that is manifested in many ways within the African diaspora community. So we basically take on this argument to sort of encourage people to learn how to work more with other people that look like them in this. So we are over 200 million people in the diaspora. If we work together, we are bigger than any significant country in the world, and we're also more powerful than any significant country in the world. But if we don't work together, if we are working against ourselves, even the smallest country in the world, the smallest organized people in the world can always take us down. And because, like it is generally said by common sense or by some wise saying, that when you take a broom together, nobody can break it. But when you take a single stick of it, anybody can break it. So that was actually behind what we were talking about here 2 days ago. Now, as I'm looking through some of the questions I asked you, what you wanted to talk about, you made mention of one concern that you see growing up in the community, which is disconnection in the community that you cited, workplace, and also in relationship and things like that. So I'm trying to understand what would you like to share in that area and how that might relate to what you do as a psychologist.
Yeah, thank you for that because I do think that the disconnection some of us feel is one of the biggest detrimental experiences I think we're having that's leading to a lot of things like loneliness, a lot of businesses not being as productive as they could be. I think here in the States, because of the political division that we're currently experiencing, not that it hasn't always been there, I just think there's a lot more awareness around it. And so for me, it's really important because kind of back what you were saying earlier, um, that disconnection breeds this sense of competition because there's this scarcity mindset that there's only a limited amount of resources available. There's only limited opportunity available. And so we have to compete against one another and we have to identify other people who are a problem, who need to be eliminated, who need to be punished, who need to be whatever, right? So we can leave more riches for people like ourselves, whether it be Americans or citizens or people with education or whatever people identify. And as you were reflecting earlier, it reminds me of how collaboration and a mindset of abundance actually serves us better in so many ways. Because when we think our resources are limited and we have this scarcity mindset, what happens is that people who are in power or people who are in positions of authority determine for others what is and what isn't, how much is available. And what oftentimes happens is they hoard their riches for themselves. You know, you have to ask this question here in the States: why is there such a need for as many billionaires as we currently have? Um, and do they actually deserve all the wealth that they receive? Because the truth is, they wouldn't be there with their billions if it wasn't for all the talent and all the brilliance that's been working under them for whatever number of years. Every great idea didn't come out of their head. Now, they may have provided the opportunity and the resources to achieve it, but those people were talented and gifted all on their own before they ever met them, and they helped them increase their wealth. And so, to me, that mindset that somehow all this is only, oh, I'm the only one who deserves this because maybe God, made me the smartest, or maybe He blessed me more than everyone else, is a lie. Again, wealth is something that is something, whether it be wealth of spirit, wealth of resources, is something to be made to be actually shared under, I think, different kinds of circumstances. And so I think the big difference you see between people is that scarcity mindset versus abundance. I think that one of the other big differences you see is for a lot of these folks a real deep sense of disconnection. And so instead of leaning on other people to create connections and build relationships and create that clean pain I talked about earlier, what you hear stories of is deep disconnection from their family, people who they say are their family, but they don't have any kind of really good relationship, no one that they can trust, and over reliance on things like drugs and lots of partying and doing everything under the sun. But in truth, they're disconnected from themselves. They're disconnected from the people around them. And they create this kind of environment that's actually really transferring of that dirty pain and a lot of harm. And so my philosophy has been one where we are trying to create connection, to learn from one another, to lean on each other when things are challenging, to support others when they're having difficult times, to have a mindset of abundance when things feel scarce, reminding ourselves this will not last. This is just a temporary time that we're experiencing. That if we keep on working together and collaborating, we can find the solutions that we're looking for. Because by myself, it's overwhelming. I might as well go over in the corner and just wilt and die. But with a community who support one another, who encourage one another, who remind each other, who bring their brilliance and their God-given talents to the room, we can conquer anything. But I think the system is set up for us to feel isolated, to feel alone, to feel disconnected. And so we go in our corners trying to figure things out. And we're figuring, why am I having such a hard time? Why does my life suck? But whether it's because you're alone or feeling disconnected, sometimes the very first step you can do is to reconnect with the folks around you. And if you don't have any folks around you and you don't have no people, go find your people. And because I promise you, with those people, those relationships, the gifts that I think God has bestowed upon us for one another can be found.
Thank you so much for that. That is so beautiful. That is so well beautifully said. There is a lot of value there. I believe so much in what you're saying because it's at the foundation of what I do. I remember, for example, a book I read a couple of years ago, written by Wato Wallace. The book is titled "The Science of Getting Rich." That book was written in 1910. So Wallace was saying that we need to learn how to collaborate because collaboration trump competition any other day. And he was saying that there is something that is a thinking substance which is responsible or which is actually the basis of anything that is ever going to be possible, that is visible, both the one that you can see or the one that you cannot see. That thing is here. That thing is everything that you need to be able to generate anything that you want. And it was saying basically that what we are doing is actually transformation because the information are here. What do you want to do? You want to fly airplane? Of course, it is true that only recently there was no airplane. Somebody decided they want to fly airplane. But if we go to deconstruct it, we can see that before the person can fly airplane, the instrument that is needed were available because if they were not available, you cannot fly airplane. So which is again to say in regard to what we were saying before, that we are always building on what is already available. Which is also to say that it is not just because we are too intelligent, it's because we are standing on the shoulder of others to rise. Therefore, it is as a minimum to learn to share. Because it is not about us. It is not about us as individual. It's about us as collective, as a group. Now, for somebody who might be wondering, there is a better way to understand this. Let's organize $100 million and give it to a man and leave it in a room, lock. Now, let's leave no money at all. Let's organize 20 people, no money, nothing, no food, and leave them in a room or maybe in a place, lock. Let's see who is going to die first. Or let's say, let's take them to the forest. We give you a bundle of money, we throw you into the forest. We give you no money, maybe 20 or 30 people, we throw you into the forest. Who's going to develop first? Because as individual, we are destined to die. Because the world is so complicated that you cannot solve all the problems. You need more than just your brain. You need a collection of multiple brains for you to find the solution. Therefore, again, we go back to what we were saying before, like looking at it, because of course it's natural now that as people of African descent, looking at the African diaspora, the spirit of Ubuntu will always come. That I am a human being because you are a human being. That is, I am because you are. It is not like I think, therefore I am. Just by thinking is not enough to be a human being. To be a human being, you must be in relationship, you must be connected to other people. So this is the idea that I think many people need to understand, that you will make it, but not alone. You will make it in connection with other people. Now, there was this assistant associate professor that I've interviewed up to 4 times in Texas. He's originally from Zimbabwe, but he have taught me something very important, talking about the concept of personhood. And he started by saying that to be a person, of course, see from an African perspective, you are, everything around you is part of who you are. The land, the water, the air, everything around you. But somebody might say, that is simple. That is too simple. No, it's not too simple. It's actually more complex than you think it is. Let's take away the land under your feet. You will disappear. Because you cannot sit on nothing. You need to sit on something. That is the basis. You cannot tell me that what you are sitting on is not part of it. It's like saying that because you are not tied to your father with a rope, your father is not your source. Your father and your mother are your source. Without your father and your mother, you cannot be here because you are not here by proxy. You are really here. Therefore, you are a manifestation of what had happened before. You are a connection between yesterday and tomorrow. So my associate professor, Tawanda, will say that who you are is a collection of everything around you. Everything around you. And he said, not all, but it's also connected to what have happened before. Your ancestors, their story, their experiences, their hatred, their love. Everything that have happened to them is what resulted into who you are today. Because they literally created the road that you are walking on. They didn't invent the airplane, but without them, we cannot invent the airplane. I say to people sometimes that we need to understand that the technology that was needed to build the pyramid is what is needed to build AI today. Because without advanced mathematics, we cannot build the pyramid. I'm not talking of just simple 1 and 2, an advanced mathematics, because you need to measure. Okay, now let's look at how do we measure. Now, let's say maybe, for example, we are in branding. How do you know what to create? How do you know what you are creating is not too heavy for the person that you are creating for? You need to know the data. Because if you create for somebody, maybe you create something that looks like a house, a gigantic house. That is the product that you have developed without understanding who is going to carry it. The people you are carrying it for you are creating it for cannot carry it, therefore it is useless. Which is to say, before you start creating, you need to know who are you creating for. How tall are they? How huge are they? What do they like? What is their strength? If you do that, then when you create it, they will be able to take it. They will like it and they will pay for it. So going back to what Tawanda was saying, he said it is not just ending by where you are and where you are coming from, it's also connected to where you are going, the future. Which is to say, the unborn are part of who you are. Now, if we understand it from this perspective now, it is obvious that we're talking about connection, community. So that when we say we are going to a destination, like Martin Luther King will say, I see on the mountain, it is not just about an individual getting to the destination. No, it is collective getting to the destination. The individual might even die. But because it was never about the individual, we will survive. And when we survive, the individual in the group will also be represented because it had never been about the individual. How long do we live? 110, 120? But we have been here for millions of years. Anyway.
Love it, love it, love it, love it.
I want to ask you, what do you suggest as a way to reinforce this connection? This because now we're talking about the disconnection, which is what we don't like. We like the opposite, which is connection. How do we encourage more of that in the community, the African diaspora community? That's our target here.
Well, for me, I think it's been able to, don't get me wrong, family connections, lineage, community are really, really great. Unfortunately, there's been some harm some of us have experienced. And I think sometimes that harm has led to the disconnection that many of us have, where we feel like we're all alone and we have to figure this all by ourselves. But one of the things when I was a counselor, when I worked with young people who would tell me horrible stories of pain and hurt and disconnection that they were experiencing, what we had to spend a lot of time on is how do we connect with the people who are going to help you achieve what you want to achieve in life. Sometimes that means, and it sounds really crazy sometimes, but sometimes if the family you came up in is the one that's causing most of the harm in your life, then that's when it's important to go choose that family, those relationships, those people who help you grow and thrive. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to abandon your old family. I mean, you might need to, but that's really rare. But usually it means finding the people in your life who who love you into being, will allow you to be the person that you need to be. And so families oftentimes help you to identify those folks. But if the family for some reason is getting in the way, it's it's building those relationships with those people who seem to be strangers, but are actually the gifts that God have given you to connect with. Um, it's and then I think the beauty that we have today is that we have technology that allows us to connect with people. So even if you feel like you're isolated and alone and disconnected in your little community somewhere, that's not necessarily an excuse anymore, whether it be with your phone or with your computer. You're able to connect with people across the globe as we're doing right now. You're able to connect with people who you maybe have never met, but you see something about them that you identify with or you connect with. There's nothing from you from stopping to say, "Hey, I want to get to know that person. I want to learn from them." You know, and so to me, it's getting outside of the box that these are only the people that I can deal with who come from this community or who have this level of education or come from this country or from this neighborhood, and asking myself, who in this world who I connect to who maybe God has been speaking into me to manifest to connect with, so I can so I can again experience that sense of beauty and love and connection to really live the life. And then ask yourself, once I've been given these gifts of connection and opportunity or whatever, what because I think one of the things that's in the conversation we're having is the collective mindset requires a certain responsibility to transfer the beauty and love and good that you received, and then share that same kind of love and beauty with others. And so part of this connection is not just the receiving, it's the giving, and fulfilling that responsibility. I think we all have. I think the challenge is that some of us feel overwhelmed and we're like, I ain't got nothing to give. But I think that's why sometimes we have to take breaks. We have to kind of heal ourselves. That's why I think going, whether it's you going to church, seeing a good therapist, having a good confidant where you can retool and rebuild and rejuvenate so you can be in a place to share, to be a listening ear, to be supportive, to invest someone in someone else's life. And so uh, to me, that those kinds of connections and not being limited just by your family connections and your bloodlines, but all the other relationships that are available to you. Because, and again, I don't want to sound too religious, but one of the things I learned early on is that Jesus said, "Who is your brother? Who is your sister?" And I think what he was trying to challenge us to think about was it wasn't just the who is your, who your father and mother was, but who are those people who raised you up to be the person that you want to be? Who are those people? So it's not just going to be your parents. Yes, it's going to be your parents, but it's going to be so many other people. It's going to be the guy who was at the store down the street who you talked to every Sunday when you went and picked up a piece of candy, who gave you little bits of wisdom. It's those relationships that are, in many ways, I don't know if they're as important, but they're definitely important and shouldn't be ignored as opportunities.
Thank you so much for that. This is really very rich conversation. Now, there is this article that I wrote a couple of months ago, I would say. Yeah, because yeah, we do have a lot of articles on our website. We have more than 2,000 articles on our website covering different topics from business to African diaspora story to our history to everything. So this article was about what I call the extended self. Um, in my place, where I'm coming from, which is the south of Nigeria, our people are known as Uromi. It's part of Edo State. It's about 1.5 million people in Edo State. That is what we call Ibiaba. Ibiaba basically means your extended kinsmen or so kinswomen. So this kinsmen or this extended self it's not just sometimes it's something that needs to be interpreted for somebody to understand. It is true that okay, we are talking of your extended self now, okay, your uncle, your cousin, but far beyond just your uncle and cousin. It is said that because the way that our society is stratified, you have the unit, which is the family, which is the smallest. Now within the family that is the head. Now within this head of this group, there are also the head of the immediate and then the extended of it. And it go on and on like that until you have the entire village. So why that is important is that if there is a problem taking place, you don't just immediately throw the problem to the entire village. You first of all need to identify what kind of problem is this. There is a certain problem that can be resolved within the immediate family, which is you, your wife, and your husband, and your kids. There are certain problems that, as I'm talking of a problem, can also be other things, no, that warrant more than you. In this case, you don't need to involve other people, but you involve your immediate family. But this time, no longer just you, your wife, and your husband. Now you need to involve brother, your sister, and all of them involved in the conversation. So sometimes this problem might warrant more than that because there are hierarchy because it's a hierarchical situation that we have in Asian society. But this is not happening only in Asian. If you go among the Igbo, which is in the eastern part of the country, this is a different kind of people. That is what is called the Igbo Umuna. Igbo Umu now basically mean the same thing that I've explained. There are this stratification of the society so that people are not confused. There are certain problems that you need to bring forward, it will be addressed. So I want to thank you so much for that. But there was another thing that you made mention of that I wanted you to quickly touch as we move towards the end of the conversation. And I think you were referring to the political divide. So maybe this might also relate to what we are talking about, building potential within our people. Any way that people might also learn from that angle. How maybe the politics might also be dividing us because sometimes people are benefiting when we are separated, when we are backbiting each other. It is not by accident. Sometimes it is intentionally created to be so. Can you say anything about that?
Well, I'm a firm believer that more people are aligned with one another than it maybe oftentimes appears from a political perspective. That oftentimes the people who are leading the divide are the people who are on the extremes, right? And that actually, when you look at people who are more so in the middle, they may not agree on everything, but there's a lot of things they do agree upon. I think it's important to get those people in the room who maybe not as loud and disruptive as some of the folks on the other ends of the conversation, but to get the majority of people together and get together and despite their differences of opinion, get together and ask themselves, what are the things that we actually agree upon so we can find the solutions? Because I think what in this political climate, what people on the extremes do is that they politicize and weaponize the difference to maintain power for themselves.
Now, for people that want to connect with you, what is the best way to reach out to you?
Oh yeah, LinkedIn is always a great place to find me because I have a strong presence there. Kazique Prince, I'm probably the only one that's on that billion system. But I'm also on other social media, Instagram, actually just my first name. You can find me pretty easily. But feel free to also email me. My email is drkjprince at Jelani Austin, Jelani Austin, AUSTIN.com.
All right, Kesige. What is going to be your final thought here today? Kind of a concluded part of the conversation. Maybe this is the other part the person can see, you still get something out of it. What is that going to be?
I'll be honest. Some of the things you said earlier today in our conversation, the gift, probably one of the most powerful tools that we have to offer to one another and to ourselves is storytelling. I fundamentally believe that because I think storytelling is sometimes the solution that we're needing to have just in this particular moment to our survival as a species.
Thank you so much for that, Prince. I really appreciate the time and the sharing here. And of course, all of you that have listened to the end of this conversation, I'll say thank you so much for being here. And I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. And why not share also with other people who you believe might benefit from it. Every now and then we bring in individuals like Prince who are sharing with us incredible value of their lived experiences, study, what they have gained in their life so that they can help you to learn, help you to straighten out your life. And like I say often, we can only get so much in the point that we get the information to your doorstep. What you do with the information from there on is your responsibility. We cannot do anything about that. We need you to take action. We're not just talking for the purpose of talking. We are sharing that can help you to take action. So make sure you take action because action is what turns the world around. If you take action, you will get the result of action taking. If you don't take action, you're going to be the same. Nothing is going to change. But if you want something to change, make sure you take action. So thank you so much for being here till now. Thank you so much, Prince. I really appreciate it.